Just like that, the Ecotech Gen 4 Pro is on this tank. Alright guys, I'm getting ready to put some actual biomedia from my 45-gallon tank that's really aged into this tank. But to do that, I gotta do some cleanup. Basically, I got a layer of crust at the bottom. So what I'm gonna do today is to vacuum them up, and this is my secret weapon. This is like 20 bucks from Home Depot. It's called the Bucket Head. It's a wet dry vacuum. I've been using this to clean sump, especially since the sump is like on the ground level. So if I do regular siphoning, I can do maybe like half a bucket, and then the flow will just drop to something super low that's not usable. So this right here, basically you just kind of slap onto a regular 5-gallon buckets. I use the one from Home Depot because it's got these like little groove that's perfect. And plug this in, you turn this on. It got some really nice suction right here. It has a float valve in there as well, so as the bucket gets full, it will stop spitting water out. Alright, so you see how it just kind of stopped? So that was actually, it hit the float valve much sooner than expected. I did not turn it off, it just naturally shut off. Oh, the thing to keep in mind is that there's still some water in the tube right here. So it nailed me before. So when I take it off, I gotta be careful. So I guess I'm gonna do 2 buckets, and this will just act like a really tiny water change before I start dropping things in here. Be right back.
The next morning.
All right, fellow reefers, today's gonna be a really special day. I'm gonna start moving rocks from the 45 to the 135. Now that the 135 have been maybe like 3 weeks into a cycle, I wanna slowly add the rock. I don't wanna spike it all at once. So today we're only gonna move like 1 or 2 pieces. I'm just gonna drop it in there. I don't wanna take any pieces of corals, and you can see we got some algae growth here. So things getting out of whack in this system, which is good because it should be down in a week or 2. So I know it's kind of controversial whether I want to bring these 5 years old live rock along with me. I know using old rock like this is pretty controversial because like basically you're bringing whatever you have from this tank versus starting from a blank slate. But my mentality is like, over time, regardless of how well a job you're doing with quarantine, you just get you get stuff. You get stuff, especially someone like me. If it's someone who is really super careful and stuff like that, yeah, maybe they can avoid it long term. But knowing how I am, I'm just gonna drop things in there anyways. So I would much rather bring rocks that I'm familiar with me, and we actually got a nice coating of algae. All right, so I guess today we'll just start with these 3. Sorry guys, I'm kind of like taking you home right now. All right, here we go. By the way, check this out. You guys like this? Set goals and go. Trying to motivate myself, you know. And here's the 135. Right now I'm kind of just like tweaking the mechanics and stuff like that, trying to set the auto top of container to autofill and etc. So now we're just gonna drop these guys in here. I'm not gonna worry too much about Aquascape and whatnot. I'm trying to get this rock in there. Ooh, look at all these things coming out. Not much, but it's a start to seed the stuff. At least seed it from the Chow household. And it's kind of crazy, because like you saw how large the rock looks in the 45. Once I drop it in here, dude, this is like tiny. There's nothing right there. Bro, you saw what crawled out? An ammo crab crawled out. So I guess this tank officially has its first residence.
1 week later.
Whew, guys, it's getting cold down in the basement. I'm down here because a Telegram, also Jay from Ecotech, just finished a live stream with Reef Dudes Devin. It was a fantastic stream. It was like 2 hours, and then we chatted for like half an hour afterwards and learned a lot of things. It was a fantastic stream. If you want to check it out, I believe Reef Dudes still have it up on his channel. But I figure since we're down here, I want to show you what has been going on. So as you can see here, there's actually a little bit more rocks in this tank. I've been slowly squirreling away rocks from the 45 to here. This piece right here is actually the largest piece of live rock I have upstairs.
Flashback.
Hey, what's up, reefers? I assure you today is a big deal because I'm moving the largest piece of live rock I got in 45 gallons tank to the 135. This is kind of like the tipping point. After this, I'm gonna move fast. This would make for nice thumbnails. Oh, that's a huge Bristol worm that just come off. That's no Bruno. biggest chunk of my rock structure is now in this little bucket, and we'll head downstairs and get this in the tank. Even though this rock looks huge in the tank upstairs, in here it looks just like a medium-sized piece of rock. It's actually a nice piece of rock. Let's drop it down here for now. Here you go. And I was okay with dropping it because I have a layer of sand for cushioning. If you have a glass bottom, definitely do not drop your rock. You're gonna crack a tank. All I had to do is spin. I'm gonna rotate a little bit to make sure all the bubble gets out and there's no air bubble trapped. Onward and upward.
End of flashback.
I intentionally pushed this rock all the way to the front. This way I can kind of get a better sense of depth. And I'm really glad that I did because I did not realize how deep this is. As I was working on this tank up here, I was trying to bring the rock close to the front of the glass, right? But I kept thinking that I'm hitting it. But when I looked from front, I was like, oh, I'm still like this far off. And then from up here, it's just weird. It's a weird perspective that I'm not used to at all. But once I have the rock in place, yeah, that's when it really sinks in again, how deep this tank actually is. It's just crazy. And I'm actually really happy. The more I scape this tank, the happier I am because like I now can see that, okay, I got some full ground all the way here, and over there is probably like 2/3 of the way into the back of the tank. It can still go a little bit further back. So that's actually a lot of depth this tank has to play with, which is fantastic. Once again, the length is 48 inches, the depth is 30 inches, and the height, I believe, is 20 inches. Well, one thing I actually want to touch on today, since we're down here, is actually the GHL Mini that my Reef Sensei Telegram from Instagram hooked me up with. So he is technically sponsoring the GHL. So you can see the pH is sitting pretty at 8.0 right now. I'm actually really happy with this value because I've been battling low pH upstairs in the 45-gallon tank, but for whatever reason, down here in the basement, the pH is a little bit better. So like I mentioned, the Reef Sensei came over one day. This was like before the lockdown really came underway, but we sat pretty far away. I was sitting here, he was like sitting all the way over there as he was using the Wi-Fi to help me set up the GHL Mini. Basically, he has everything set up. He just gotta like hop on my wireless network and off we go. And I think for that portion where I actually mess with the user interface and stuff like that, we can go a little bit deeper further down the road once that thing's set up. One thing that I really struggled with was the placement of the probe. At first I have it in that chamber right there, but I found that it seems like the water flow with the little air bubble was kind of like throwing the pH values for a loop and stuff like that, so I ended up moving it here. Now the struggle I had was that I was not sure if the probes could be submerged, and it seems like the opinion has been really polarized whether the probe can go underwater. Some people are saying that, oh no, you can completely submerge the entire probe. In fact, some of the grow operation actually have the exact same probe here. This is a BLS 2-junction probes, I believe, pH probe. He said that like his same probes have been submerged for 2 years with no issue. And then I got the other side of the coin saying that you should only submerge the probe maybe up to here, and the top portion should never get wet or should not be submerged. So seeing all these variation, I figured I'd just go to the source. So I ended up DMing BRS Instagram account, and really quickly they got back to me. They said that once in a while, if the probe got fully submerged, it's not a problem at all. However, because the salt water is corrosive, ideally it should not be completely submerged for a long period of time. And that is kind of in line with some of the stuff that I hear, because like salt water, it will cause the wire and the top bolt parts to become brittle. And when you move it again, it may break. And especially if you look at the pH probe, that's this guy right here, the blue one for mine at least, there's a little hole right there. And that little hole is not really built to deal with like pressure and whatnot. And supposedly there's a risk of possibly salt water going into the hole and ruining the probe. The probe is like this. There's like a plastic sleeve on the outside. In the middle, there's the whatever the testing equipment is. And between the testing, the center piece and the outside piece, there's the standard liquid, meaning that those are the reference liquid that the probe's going to use against the tank water to get the actual value. So obviously, if the hole got compromised or water somehow get into the probe, then the whole probe is ruined. It's going to throw off all the values. At normal operation, we'll just keep the tank like this in terms of where the probe height is. This is perfectly fine. But once in a while, when I shut off the return pump and the water start going back from the tank into the sump and flood, I think it comes up to about here. It may kind of submerge it a little bit, but again, Not a big deal if I just do it once in a while. By the way, temperature probe, completely okay to go underwater full time. And that's this guy right here. Sorry for the really long-winded explanation. I figure I should probably mention it here because I was looking online trying to find the correct information, and people are really passionate about whichever way they believe is true. So I figured I just contacted BLS, and that's kind of like the official stance. Maybe they play a little bit more on the safe side, but hey, if I can kind of play along their rule to make sure the probe does not fail prematurely, why not? All right, continuing on.
3 days later.
All right, big day today because we are about to take out the Radion G4 and pop it over the 135 gallon tank. Didn't even notice her here. She can't hear us. Oh, she. All right, looky here. This is how I had it set up. This is the Aquatic Life T5 hybrid. Hybrid meaning that I got two bulbs here, and then in the middle you can put a Radion or castles and a lot of different kind of lights in the middle. So you get like a hybrid LED T5 fixture. Served me really, really well for the last 2.5 years. Love this units. They came out with a newer one recently, but the price pretty much like doubled or tripled. So that's it's a different ball game now. When about this, it was, I think it's like $250 or $300. The new fixture, I think, is like upwards to 500-ish. It's a lot more polished, but at the same time, it kind of lost some of its appeal because of the price point. Alright, now the trick is to find the Radion 4 Pro's wire and power adapter in this rat's nest of wires. It's gonna be fun.
2,000 years later.
Alright guys, and just like that, the Ecotech Gen 4 Pro is on this tank temporarily. It's kind of lopsided because I feel like most of the corals that I will move down is gonna go there first on the right side first. Left side is going to be relatively empty as I figure out the scape and whatnot. So it is in its temporary position, and this is actually my temporary lights. I do have other lights that should be coming in a month or two, hopefully. So we'll see. However, here's why I really need to give a big kudo to Ecotech for the Mobius system. Before with the Gen 3, I gotta plug in the USB, pull out my laptop and stuff, and now things are just easy. Just open the app, you don't even need to jump on this Wi-Fi or whatnot. Let me scroll to where it's gonna be. And this is their just default AB Plus system, or AB Plus templates. And just doing a quick demo right now. I know some of you guys are probably asking now, like, in the proper reefer, while you're cycling the tank, why do you have the light on? Because most of the recommendation is to do it without lights, and I have to agree, do it without light. But I'm just so used to cycling with lights on. Like I mentioned in my old videos, whenever I cycled, I don't really do water tests. I just look for the algae, right? I'll first nothing will happen, and then brown diatom started coming in, and then green algae started coming in. When the green algae is kind of like fruit blown, that's kind of like my indicator saying that the tank is pretty much ready to go. Now, it's just something that I've been doing. So the appropriate way to do this really is just to do it without lights. And then you start it off with a ammonia source, whether it's liquid ammonia or like a raw shrimp for a couple days. And then you either do some kind of like starter bacteria culture to help give it a little boost, or just wait for the bacteria to develop naturally, or of course use live rock. But if you've been following my channel, you know I'm kind of weird. I'm just so used to seeing the brown diatom stage coming in like 2 or 3 weeks, and then by the 5 or 6 weeks you'll see like green algae coming in, and that's kind of when I know that the tank is good to go. Recently I've been reading a thread on Reef to Reef talking about how ammonia tests and nitrite tests is basically a waste of money in this hobby, and they're like a strong proponent of a 7 weeks submersion periods. Basically the idea is that if you have ammonia source and if your rocks have been in that appropriate water, right, if the ammonia source for 7 weeks, your tank should be good to go by the end of it. So that kind of falls in line with my waiting for brown algae to come up and then green algae to come up. Usually that is roughly around 7 to 9 week stage. So it kind of just all fall in line. So whichever way you want to do it, most likely you'll be okay. Just be patient. For me, I do like having lights over a tank because I'm weird. And also number 2, I'm going to start transferring some of these outer rocks I have in the 45 gallon tank that do still have some corals on there into this tank. Because looking at actually that piece of rock right there, I have a photosynthetic sponge and also SPS, Monty Cat right there. They're doing okay. And I do see the emerald crab, and there's actually a scarlet hermit that kind of came with one of those rocks as well that was crawling around, and they're doing fine. I did not see any brown diatom, anything like that, probably because I have not had a light over this tank at all for the last 4 weeks. So I feel like we're probably in the middle of the cycle. If I see the inverse seems to be like restless, walking around and stuff like that, meaning they're not happy, then of course I'll take them out, put them in one of the tanks upstairs. But so far they seems okay, and we do have some microalgae that's for them to graze on with the live rock that live rocks that came fresh from the 45-gallon. And I'm going to start moving some of the stuff from the mangrove tank and the rest of the 45-gallon to this tank as well. And that's why that light will be so important. It will be life-sustaining until I get the final sets of lights in place. All right, guys, that'll do it for this update. I feel like in this update, we cover a lot of different things. We got a lot of stuff done. By the way, I've ordered 50 pounds of macro rocks from Marine Depot, and also a couple pieces of those macro foundation rock from BLS. And I think in the next couple weeks, I'll start putting together some of the more quote-unquote impressive scape. I'm gonna do some overhang. I'm gonna do some like big arches and stuff like that with epoxies and acrylic rods. So that is gonna be fun. So these guys will be where the beneficial bacteria lives, and I'll try to incorporate these rocks into the final scape as well. But the actual main frame of the scape should be arriving really soon, and that's gonna be a really fun thing to do, especially because I can do it outside the tank, take my time, look at it from different direction before I commit it to the tank, unlike these rocks right there. And if you don't want to miss that, be sure to hit that subscribe button down there, it must be down there somewhere, so that you do not miss that next update. All right, I'll see you guys next Sunday at 12:30 p.m. Show. Bye. Marine Depot, 45 pounds, macro rock. Let's see what we got to work with.